Milton Jean Knebel's at 523 West Wisconsin Avenue on August 1st, 1985. Could you state how long you've lived in the Belmont community?
I've lived in the Belmont community all my life. And Milton had moved down here in 1934 from Milton with his parents, and they farmed out in Elk Grove Township. And then we were married in 1942, and we farmed in Elk Grove Township for, well, since 1945 until 1979 when we retired, and then we moved to town in 1981.
Can you tell us where that farm is at?
It's on Sales Barn Road, the second house on the left-hand side.
Okay. Are any of your children farming there now?
Our daughter-in-law is farming there now with her family.
Could you tell us your family background, like your children and grandchildren? And your parents?
Yes. Well, we'll start with our children. We had 5 children. Karen was the oldest, and she married Jerry Von Gloom. And they have 4 daughters, Brenda, Jackie, Wendy, and Angie. And then Jack he was married to Donna Kowalski in 1967. And they had 7 children: Chris, Matt, Kate, Carla, and she's deceased, and Teresa, Mary, and Kevin. And then Joan married Jerry Miller in 1966, and they have 3 children: Andy, Jenny, and Julie. And then Janie, she married Mark Rickers in 1970, and they have 3 children: Joseph, January, and Jeff. That's going to sound good.
Her 5th child.
Oh yes, then we had a 5th child. Keith was killed in a tractor accident in 1960. He was aged 11 years.
Could you tell us about your father and the mobile station, the history he has in it?
Well, my dad, John Henry Snyder, better known as Harry, everybody here, built the mobile station in 27 and 28, and he ran it until his death in 1939. And then my mother leased it out to different ones until her death in 1976. We'd owned it for 50 years.
Do you have any brothers and sisters?
I have 2 sisters, Ann Purcell and Rita Baker. And they both teach they both work in the Monroe school system. And then I have one brother, Paul Snyder, postmaster here.
Okay. Could you tell us your educational background?
I just had a grade in high school education.
Okay.
All from Belmont. You tell her yours.
I graduated in Pikeville High School in 37.
Okay. How about your working career? Farmers?
We farmed all our life.
Okay. Could you list 3 annual events that you think are special to Belmont people?
School fair, not Cleveland. That's it.
And I think the firemen's dance every year. And Christmas cantata. And then the ecumenical choir.
Why do you think they're special to Belmont? Why do you think they're special to Belmont?
Well, everybody has to work together so that they'll be well attended and everything, and I think the people do work together real well.
If a stranger came to Belmont and asked you what 3 places to visit in Belmont, what would you tell them?
They'd tell them to go to the First Capitol Park and the Belmont Mountain Park and the new, what is the name of the cheese factory? When they make French cheese.
Yeah.
And probably Knebel processing plant.
Okay. Have you witnessed any tornadoes or anything you can tell us about the tornadoes?
We witnessed the one in 44, that was the big one. And we've had some out in the farm, a couple that we've had buildings demolished and trees uprooted and stuff.
I don't remember what year that was at the farm.
Do you have any specific type of stories regarding any of the tornadoes?
Well, when Jack was born, he was born over the Floss Martins, and we were gone from there 2 weeks from the day to the time the tornado hit there, so we thought we were lucky.
What organizations do you belong to, or have belonged to?
I was a charter member of the Lions Club. I don't belong to it anymore. I belonged to the Sportsman Club for many years. It's about the size of me.
I don't belong to much.
What do you belong
I
to?
belong to the St. Philomena's Alder Society.
Could you tell us some of your hobbies?
Well, I do ceramic work, and I make dolls, and I make Care Bears. It's mostly for the grandchildren. And then I knit and crochet a little bit.
As you can see around here, she collects plates.
Do you want to tell us about some of the plates?
Oh, I've got a collection of Hummels on the wall. And then I have different ones from that's a set there on the hutch of Sander Clucks. I don't know, I don't collect them for an investment. I collect the ones I like.
Who are they by, though, the paintings?
The paintings there on the hutch are from John McClellan.
No, I mean
Which,
the painters. No, I mean, they aren't called that.
she's getting all that.
I know,
You can take this out, can't you?
but I mean,
The first 2 dolls I made, I kept them for myself, and then I'm making for all the grandchildren. And the table that they're sitting at, I ate ice cream at when I was a child. It was from Miner's drugstore. And when Clarence Knebel bought the building for the locker plant, these were in it. And Mr. Miner sold it to him for $3. And we've been offered $120 for the set now, so. Our Norman Rockwell collection. I don't have too many of them. And in the back, are you getting one in the back? The ones in the background are from the John McClellan collection. And the angels there are of some of my ceramic work. Making Care Bears, and each one of the grandchildren wanted them, so I got into quite a tizzy getting them ready, so they really enjoy having them, and I enjoyed making them for them.
Do you have any names for your bears, I guess?
I don't name them.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Knebel, do you have any specific hobbies?
well, we have a cottage up in Mahamocoy Lake, just south of Bruce, Wisconsin, which is 50 miles northeast of Eau Claire in Russ County, and it's a very good fishing lake. I've caught 2 nice big muskies and a lot of other big fish. And there are usually all of our families come make a trip up every summer and stay with us for 5 days or a week. A lot of our friends, we really enjoy it. And I used to do a lot of hunting, but I kind of cutting it out. And up in the Willow region and Oneida County, deer hunting for about 30-some years. But I think I've hunted it my last year now.
Your grandchildren all get to go up there and like that?
Up to our lake cottage, they've all,
I find a lot more time with that now after not farming
oh
anymore.
yeah, we spend between 5 and 6 months a year up there in summer. We just happen to be home now for a couple of weeks.
Well, do you ever have any trouble finding time to get to the cottage, that you have to make waiting your schedule of things you do?
No, not very often. We kind of work around it.
She takes her doll making and so forth along with her.
You said that you belong to the church Alder Society. Do you do some work for them or for the church?
Well, I play the organ. I played the organ for 27 years and worked with the choir members. And then, of course, the big thing in our church is a smorgasbord where everybody works.
Do Did you help with when the church was started here in Belmont? Were you instrumental in?
Everybody helped. We made quilts and alder linens and all that sort of thing. And our first church, as you know, was down where Burke and Lovell is now, on Main Street. And we were there for, well, it started in 57. And then in June of 58, we had our first mass over where St. Philomena's is now.
And were you playing the organ then?
Yes,
for the
I played the organ for the first mass.
Well, that's quite an honor to have done that.
Rita Baker and Kenneth Baker were married at the church when it was on Main Street, and they were the first wedding there, and I think the only wedding that took place there. There's a stack in the front of the building where Burke and Lovell is now located, and there's a picture of some of the ladies making alder linens top right, and other ladies are making a quilt for the first raffle to help make money for the church lower right.
Knebel, your wife said that you moved here from Mifflin. What brought you here to the Belmont?
Well, my father's name was Walter, my mother's name was Emma, and they farmed half a mile west of Mifflin for, I think, 20-some years. And Alfred Schroeder owned a big farm down by Elk Grove. He was after Dad. Dad worked for him when he was a teenager. He was always after my dad to come down on his farm. So in the spring of 1934, we moved down on that farm. We drove the cattle all down the back roads from Mifflin down to Elk Grove. And we farmed the whole farm with horses for the first 2 years. I remember the hot summer of 36. It was a dry, hot summer, and we cut all the oats. We had 70 acres of oats, and we cut it all with a 6-foot minder. It was hot. We had to have 2 sets of horses out there, and then carry or haul water and milk cans out to them, and take the horses off, water them, and then let them rest a while, and keep changing them back and forth all day. That's the way you can handle it.
So I imagine you've noticed quite a bit of the change in the modernization and things of farming.
That's certainly the case.
Do you remember anything specific that you got for the modernizing of your farming that you really liked having on the farm?
Well, one big thing I certainly appreciated didn't have to do anymore was shop oats and thrash and shred and pitch manure by hand. That all helped quite a bit.
Well, you were getting into farming then. Your family came down during the Depression and right after, so it must have been kind of a
right in the Depression.
Kind of a difficult time.
I know the banks all closed, and my dad's money, all except what he had in his pockets, was locked up. And the only way all the banks were closed, and the only bank that loaned him any money was Livingston Bank. They loaned him enough to move down on, and that was it. And he went on, started all over again, and went from there.
So now Donna's carrying on with one of the farms.
Yeah, one of the farms. My dad bought the farm that we lived on in 45, and we moved there in 45, and we bought it from him when he passed away, and we owned it, 9 years, and we sold it to Jack and Donna, and Jack only lived, 2 years, and he passed away, and now Donna and the family's there, so that's the 3rd generation. And my other brother Melvin lives on Dad's other farm. He bought that at the same time down right at Elk Grove. Used to be the old Al Huntington farm.
Mrs. Knebel mentioned some tornadoes earlier. Can you remember any other types of disasters that were out on the farm in some 40 years or so that you've been associated with it?
What would you call the ice storm disaster?
I think.
Yes.
What, were we without power for 9 days?
Yeah.
Do you remember how you were able to get along without power for that long?
Well, I was in town the day of playing cards down at the pool hall, and that storm hit, and power went off down there. We were playing cards by candlelight. Even in the daytime it was so dark. And I had the presence of mind enough that my brother Melvin had a generator. And I left the card table right then went right down and seen him, told him not to, I figured that some of the neighbors would be wanting to borrow that generator because there wasn't many. And told him that I need that generator that night to milk the cows. And he was good enough that he brought it over every night and every morning. And so we could pump water and milk the cows, and he'd take it back. And I think Jack he stopped at Jack's and milked his cows too, didn't he? I think so. And then about the third day, by the co-op up here, they shipped in a whole semi-load of generators. And they sold them like hotcakes. Everybody went in and bought one, and we used that then until the power come back on, and I don't think it's been used since.
Also, you're probably doing some farming during the war, during World War II. Was there ever like a shortage of helpers for helping out on the farm, or were there always plenty of Germans?
There was more help than there is now, by darn sight. I think it was the Cobb Canning Company. They brought in prisoners of war to help with the candy farmers. And when they had slack time, they'd bring them out so farmers could hire them, like for shocking oats and, when you need help. That helped quite a bit, and I don't remember what it cost. It didn't cost very much.
The only problem with that was they didn't speak English. So you just had to kind of...
I can remember I had 3 of them out there helping me shock oats, and we had one field right south of the house that had quite a few thistles in it, and they didn't have any gloves, and they'd grab into them bundles, they say, ow, ooh, ah. I can understand that much.
Well, now, all the time he was working on the farm, then, were you staying on the farm, or did you have any type of an outside job that you worked at?
Yeah, I was on the farm most of the time. Well, I worked as cook at the high school in 1963. I worked there for 9 years, but I also all the time helped with the chores on the farm.
That with the kids kept quite busy then.
Right.
Did you ever do any cooking up for the school? Now at all? Do they ever call you for...
Oh, yes, once in a while I substitute up there and help them out, but it isn't too often anymore because Donna is a substitute. She goes most of the time.
Now, your family, you said that your family had lived in Belmont. Is the house still here that you were raised in?
Oh yes, the house is down at the bottom of Main Street. My mother and Dad bought that in 1928, and we were all raised right here in Belmont. And then when my mother passed away in 1976, we put the house up for sale. And my daughter Joni and her husband Jerry bought the house. And they've lived there ever since.
Well, so your grandchildren are being raised where you were raised.
Right.
Do you know when that house was built? Or who had it before you? Or
Mrs. Robbins had it before. That's who Dad bought it from. And I can't tell you just how old it is, but it's one of the oldest houses in Belmont. Because we have seen older pictures, and that house shows up down there.
well, what do you think that Belmont's going to be like maybe 20 years from now? We've heard so many changes that have happened while you've been here. How about the next 20 or so years? Do you think there'll be many changes here? Or how about in the farming area? Do you think it'll stay the way it is, or do you think it'll get worse or get better?
Well, we sure hope it gets better. But I don't know what change. There'll probably still be some more building done in Belmont, and probably the population will grow, but otherwise I don't see that there'll be many changes.
Anything that you might hope would happen here, or do you think everything's...
I hope we keep our schools.
Do you like the school system that we have?
Oh yes, of course some things we don't like, and most of it we do.
But it's that way every place. We're up there at Bruce, it's the same way. They complain about something, they're always complaining about something, but it's still a good system.
Oh yes.
Is there anything you'd like to see move into Belmont? Any different shops or stores or anything?
Well, somebody could start a craft shop, but I think we're too close to Platteville for that.
They brought in, Canning Company brought in a group of Jamaicans, and they were lazier than the Dickens. But you could go and hire them too, but there wasn't many farmers went and hired them. and sit in the shade.
Came in, and she lives on a farm. Maybe she'd like to tell you something about their farming operation.
We live on a farm. My husband's name is Mark Rickers, and we live on a farm about halfway between Belmont and Darlington, a mile south of Beardsley Lake. 280-acre beef farm.
About it.
That's about it.
Do you notice much difference on your farming with your husband's farm as when you were growing up?
Well, yeah. When I was growing up, we had a dairy farm, and my husband and mine is strictly beef farming, so it's quite a bit different than the other way.
Do you have any hobbies on your plate?
I do a lot of sewing and craft work, and those are my basic hobbies. My husband really doesn't have any hobbies. He says his hobby is farming, so.
I'd like to thank you for letting us interview you.
You're welcome.
Would you like to say your name?
I'm Mabel Edge, and we've lived